Well, hello, algebra students and seekers of truth. Now we get to kind of the culmination of all quadratic problems by solving this one. Now, one thing that you should notice about this example is that there is this coefficient here in the front. Okay? Factoring is not going to work. Completing the square is not going to work for no other reason than there's that number, that darn number in the front there that makes life a little bit more difficult for us in order to solve. Okay? But rest assured, there is a way to do this, and it is not difficult at all. This 4 here is causing us a problem, so what we're going to do is we're going to divide everything by 4. So we're going to take this whole line here and just divide everything in there by 4. And the solution that we get is something that's quite acceptable and straightforward. Okay, so if we divide, going on the left side of the equation, 4x squared by 4, that's going to give us an x squared. 4x by 4, that's going to give us an x. And negative 9 over 4, that's going to give us negative 9/4. 0 over 4 is still 0. Okay? And so the only true downside to this type of problem solving is we're going to have to deal with fractions, and you'll see that in just a minute. So now that this coefficient is 1, we could use completing the square again. So we get x squared plus x. We're going to take this 9/4 and push it to the right side here, add 9/4 to both sides. Right? And then we can kind of set up our completing the square problem. What are we going to add here? And we want this to be x plus x plus something quantity squared. And that should equal something. Well, this number right here is in fact a 1, right? This coefficient here is really 1. And we know that this term right here is always going to be 1/2 of that. The constant term in the factored form is always going to be 1/2 of the coefficient of the x term. And then this number here is going to be this 1/2 squared. Now 1/2 times 1/2 is going to equal 1/4. Okay? And as always, because we need to balance this equation, we're artificially injecting a 1/4 in here. So we need to add 1/4 to the other side of the equation. And now we can get back to solving. 9/4 plus 1/4 is going to be 10/4, which does reduce down to 5/2. But I'm not going to reduce it down just yet. You'll see why in just a minute. Now that I take the square root of both sides, I'm going to get x plus 1. Yeah, that was terrible. I'm going to get x plus 1/2. That's equal to plus or minus the square root of 10/4. Now the square root of 10/4 is really the square root of 10 over the square root of 4. So the reason I didn't simplify earlier is, well, because it'll make it easier for me to take the square root. So this is going to be plus or minus the square root of 10 all over 2. Because square root of 4 is just 2. And then in my last step, we can just take 1/2 and subtract 1/2 from both sides. So negative 1/2 plus or minus the square root of 10 over 2. And a lot of people like to simplify this into one singular fraction. Negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 10 all over 2. And there you have it, the final answer to this, to all of the work that we've been doing here. I want to scroll up here and just say that the only complexity is that there is this coefficient in the front here, this 4, that makes it difficult for us to factor, even by completing the square. Well, if that's the case, all we have to do is divide everything by that singular term, and we have a problem here that we can solve quite easily. All right. as always, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.